this computer. Hello and welcome. I'm really excited to speak with Maria Sirois, who I love to talk. Did I pronounce that right? I pronounced it in French.
Perfect.
All right. Who's going to talk to us about what it takes to thrive during this time of pandemic. And I called it Building Relationships in Isolation. But what we're going to do today is dig a lot deeper to figure out what it is, what's the opportunity, what can we build, what are the skills that we can learn during this time. So first of all, welcome, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you, Iris. It's wonderful to be with you.
So the first question I have for you is, what is the opportunity in isolation and the lockdown for people that are quarantined? This is a really difficult time for the single people that are all on their own, and often with the couples or the families that are all in this tight space. So let's start with that part.
Well, in an ideal world, we would take moments like this where the old norms have disintegrated and we're in limbo between that and the new norms that are still emerging. We would take the opportunity to really cultivate first a deeper relationship with oneself that's healthier,
Mhm.
to start from there, because we also know that when the more we uplevel our own health and well-being, the more we attract that toward us.
Hang on, I want to repeat that. Say that one more time. I think that's a critical piece.
So the more we increase our own health and well-being, which includes our own vitality, energy, self-respect, self-regard, self-love, the more we attract that toward ourselves.
Yeah, and it starts from what I'm putting together. It starts to become a standard because if you're vital and alive, you're not going to be attracted to a couch potato. If you're a couch potato, someone who's vital and alive isn't going to be attracted to you. So you want to make sure I'm putting words in your mouth, and you can correct me, that if you want to attract something, you have to be that something.
Exactly. So three foundational sort of self-care questions I'm inviting people to ask these days, like on a daily basis, is, what is something that nourishes or calms me? What is something that strengthens me? And what is something that inspires me? And to choose one of those questions and practice it a little bit each day. And that way we not only calm ourselves, strengthen ourselves, or inspire ourselves in the moment, we begin to remember, and here's the key resilience point, that we get to lead ourselves through this crisis. The crisis is going to happen, but we have the opportunity, to use your words, to lead ourselves through in ways that are healthful.
Yeah, so can you maybe give some concrete examples of what have you seen either with yourself or in your practice of things that strengthen, nourish, and inspire?
So we all do better when we're connected.
Mm.
And we do best in times of stress when we're connected to people we deeply trust. I have a few very, very good longstanding friends in the world, but I wasn't giving myself permission to take the time to actually hang out with them, like a coffee chat or a gin and tonic chat on Zoom, because I was so busy working so hard. And within 3 weeks, I was absolutely exhausted, and not there was no replenishment coming in, even though, like, literally I was sitting on my tushy for 8 hours a day. Do you know what I mean? But
I definitely
so
know
I
that.
had to give myself permission. I had to give myself permission to nourish myself by saying yes to, I'm going to spend a half an hour with my oldest friend, Cynthia or Alex, and shockingly take my own medicine and remind myself that, man, you get to shape your day. Even though COVID-19 is doing this, you get to shape your day.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. Sometimes I'll open the front door and go, oh, this is what the outside world looks like, because I've forgotten to actually build in time to go out. And like, I have a forest that's 12 houses away from my house. And until COVID started, I had never gone in there once. And I've lived here
Wow.
for 3 years. And
Wow.
so for me, it's opened up that opportunity. The forest nourishes me. Now that it got warmer, we're in Toronto, I'm starting to cycle almost every day. That nourishes me. So I really get that. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So that's the nourishing. What is,
Nourish. So in other words, I made a choice finally to put myself in equal value. See, one of the things that's happening in COVID is we're so beautifully inspired to care for others, and we're tremendously worried about so many others that we keep forgetting to put ourselves in the equation. So we want to start there with either nourishing, strengthening, or inspiring moments in our day.
And what would be some examples of inspiring?
Well, I've been watching John Krasinski's Some Good News. I've been receiving and sharing posts of the groups of musicians around the world who are doing these compilations to raise money for this particular COVID effort or that particular COVID effort. So I'm hunting. We call it in my field, I call it hunting the good. We hunt for the good news that inspires us. And to be honest, going outside into nature is in part that also, because there's something so powerful about the natural cycles reminding us that life is larger than any one moment. That can also be tremendously strengthening and inspiring.
And we've heard a lot of this about people who have the news on for way too many hours in the day. I'm one that hasn't listened or watched the news for about 20 years now. And the important things all filter down. So I love that hunting the good, because I was talking to a client today about maybe turning down the amount of time that she was watching the news, because it's all about negativity, doom, and that has an impact on us. So I love that term. I'm going to start using that, hunting for the good.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what is inspiring. And then strengthening is really, centering yourself on what are my capacities? Like, what are the gifts that I have to bring uniquely? Um, you and I have both seen this for people who are looking for partners, and they contort themselves to try to match this other ideal of who they might think might be a worthy partner, instead of elevating the gifts that are authentic to them. And that's true from a resilience perspective. It's true from a relationship perspective. We want to lead from what's already good and strong within us.
Yeah, I love that you've touched on that, because, we live in a society that really doesn't, we've taught, at least as women, don't be so selfish, right? Don't be vain. Don't get too big for your britches. And so you're actually inviting our viewers to turn around and really have a good look at what's in here already. Maybe peel back what I call some of those layers from our past that have really covered those authentic gifts, and stop becoming someone else.
Yeah. I'm actually teaching a brief, just 4-week writing course, and I can't even tell you how many people have said, I've always wanted to write, and I just never gave myself permission. And as we're going through the class, they're realizing, wow, people like it when you show up in your life in love with yourself, like with not from a narcissistic point of view, but like that I love the fact that I love language, and so people who love language are drawn to me now because I've owned it and I've celebrated it.
Yeah, so you're really talking about, how do we magnify our own light that's already in there? How do we turn it up, clean off the glass that's been, covered and maybe become more opaque, and just allow it to really shine?
Yeah. And here's one of the confusions about a time like COVID: because it's so overwhelming, because we're fatigued, because we're worried, we forget that the light within us has not dimmed. It's like dusty now and clouded with smog, the smog of anxiety and fear and fatigue and overwhelm, but it's still there, and there's no financial investment. You just simply have to remember, wait a minute, I have gifts, I have strengths, I can use them.
So I may be coming backwards at this question, and I think we may have started to touch on it. For people that are dealing with grief, maybe grief of people, grief of careers that have been halted, loss in income, that are dealing with the anxiety of not knowing, when will this be over? When will I be able to get myself back out there, even if it's just to be in social situations? What do they do with those emotions that are real for them right now?
Yeah. Well, we never want to negate our emotions, right? Our emotions are valid. We come by them validly. So sorrow, pain, worry, those are legitimate. I mean, we need to give ourselves time and space to experience them. And as we do so, they move through us. We don't tend to stay stuck if we give ourselves permission to feel what we feel first, and then turn our minds and our heart toward the things that cultivate resilience. So full permission to feel our sorrow, our fear, our trauma. I'm so terribly worried about our healthcare providers around the globe who are being traumatized by this, who are going home trying to manage relationships at home as well. Full permission to feel how hard this is and also to move oneself toward the light.
And what does that look like?
It looks like time and space to feel.
Mm.
It looks like um, creating moments of respite and recovery. If you've only got one day off a week, to take advantage of that time through the lens of respite and recovery.
Yeah, and it sounds like the theme right now is about giving ourselves permission.
100%. 100%.
Permission to
Yeah.
feel, permission to recover, permission to follow those dreams that we've always wanted to do, and for whatever reason have decided we didn't have enough time, we were too busy with our kids. When the time is right, it's just maybe the theme for COVID right now is, where can you give yourself permission?
Yep. Yeah, I love that. Beautifully said.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. What I wanted to talk to you about is, you really specialize in building resilience. Could
Yes.
you talk about that? What does that mean? And then what does that look like?
So resilience is the capacity to adapt with healthful strategies to times of upheaval, stress, distress, loss, etc. And most of us are resilient most of the time. Having said that, events like COVID-19 can bring any of us to our knees. So first, I want to just normalize that if you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, frightened, anxious, irritable, sad, this is humanity now. This is exactly what humanity looks like now.
Mm,
Having said that, humanity is also historically and in the present day capable of extraordinary resilience.
mm,
And the kinds of conversations you're having about cultivating healthy relationships within oneself and around us, those are keystones to resilience, because they up level our optimism, they up level our hope, they up level the possibility of a better future, and they remind us that really those of us who experience life as heaven, even when we're experiencing literally hell, are those of us who are invested in relationships.
yeah, so say more of that, about that. What does that mean, invested in relationships?
Okay, so from a resilience perspective, we have known for decades, decades and decades, that we do better when we are connected. So men who've had heart surgery, women who have chronic illnesses, those who've been recently widowed, children facing life-threatening diseases, it doesn't matter where we look. If we are connected, we navigate our health and well-being more successfully. Fewer visits back to the doctor, greater health outcomes over the long term, etc. So the resilience data on connection has been strong and robust and consistent. When you look at what actually enables us to thrive even in difficult moments, the connection piece is crucial. We do not do well isolated. And for those of us who are socially isolated or single at this time, the impulse might be just to sort of, bury our heads under the cover and sort of wait it out. But the waiting it out is not a non-resilient strategy.
Mm.
What is being asked of us now is, what small steps, and I emphasize small, what small steps can we make to, first of all, increase the connections with those we trust dearly in this world. Secondly, seek out connections with experts who can help us. Like when I was applying for that business loan, oh my God, I needed an accountant, I needed a lawyer, I needed expert people, right? And the third is to move toward relationships that have that kind of light to them, right? One of the beautiful things about these Zoom conversations is we're starting to see people making inside companies connections to people through the chat who they wouldn't have ever met, because one's in San Francisco and one's in Denmark, right? But now there's a friendship budding, or who knows what, because they can now see each other globally.
Well, it's interesting because I belong to Conversation Among Master Coaches, and the conference is actually running on right now. And so instead of, we should have been in Texas, we're actually all on Zoom. There's about 200 people, and you get to meet so many more people than if you were there physically. So
Right.
I love this international global community that we're starting to create in the different domains.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So connection has been a primary theme for resilience strategies for so long. And now we're seeing how important it is in the worst moments and also in terms of helping us build a better future, looking forward to this strange, who knows what it's going to look like, new normal over the next year.
Mhm. So this might be one of the examples, but I know that some of the single women that I work with have difficulty reaching out to their married friends because they know their married friends have their partner to turn to, and they're feeling very isolated, lonely, and they don't want to burden that married friend. But I don't know if you found this in your practice, but when they turn to that person, it just strengthens the relationship.
Exactly, exactly. So here's a permission that's a little funky, but in times of upheaval, that's the time to be creative and innovative because in some ways we have nothing to lose. We've lost so much, right? We've just so if this is the time to take a risk and I for example there's a colleague at work I have who we just like each other when we see each other in the hall, but we were never on the same team together. But now via Zoom we're put in these Zoom weird teams, and she and I are going to take a social distance walk,
Mm.
which feels like, oh, there's something new in my life. There's some, and I know that her circles of connection are new and different. And so there's a possibility that that will lead to a broadening of the relational field for me.
Mm. And what I'm hearing from you just before we had this conversation is that you're talking about the out of the three about strengthening. What do you need? What are those small steps you can take to strengthen yourself during this time?
Yep.
And would you say that resilience is on a continuum?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
talk about that? What does that mean? What does it look like?
It just means that it means a few different things. Is that some of us are more resilient than others because we probably are um, have been educated more about what resilient strategies could look and feel like. So we just have a more robust toolbox, if you will. And it's also a continuum because there are circumstances that can bring any of us to our knees, and that'll vary. So I'm thinking of a few people now for whom loss of a job, loss of income was absolutely radically shattering. And yet others I know who've lost their jobs have been like, oh, okay, opportunity to get something even better. Like, so they totally different experiences of the same phenomena, right? And same too in the relational world. Some of us experience online dating as excruciating and highly stressful, and others of us experience it as if, all right, check that one. I tried that, check it off next, right? So right? And so our resilient capacity exists on a continuum. Our resilient strategies exist along a continuum, and we want to just be fully sort of humane about this. That this moment is unlike so many others in that the stressors are so multidimensional and so frequent and constant that we want to give ourselves permission to really measure ourselves in terms of small gains, small steps forward, small sort of attempts to move in the right direction, the healthful direction.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing in resilience is one, it's what are the new tools that I need to bring into my toolbox? I have X amount. Like my belief is that everyone is resilient because they've made it to this moment. Now, did they make it with ease or did they make it with a lot of struggle and suffering? I think is what you're talking about on that continuum.
Yeah,
So I would imagine that the invitation is if you're suffering and struggling, there are two places to look. What are the tools and strategies that you need to add into your toolbox? And also, what's the shift in the mindset that's going to make it easier for you? Because the truth is, the two people who lost their jobs, one, that says, oh, opportunity, and the other one is like, oh my God, my whole world is shattered. The only difference is their mindset in that moment.
their mindset, but also how much support they have. We do know that people navigate loss differently if they feel they have at least one trusted other they can lean on. So again, back to the great work you're doing around relationships, this territory is so important.
Yeah, so again, it comes back to we thrive the best, for lack of a better word, the most when we're in relationships, whether it's romantic, friendships, social relationships. And in this time of crisis, of pandemic, it has just magnified that need even greater.
Yep, exactly.
And so I want to just touch on the piece of, people who are listening to this and are wondering, but I'm afraid I don't want to be rejected. I don't want my married friend to say she's too busy. I don't want to reach out by phone to someone and they're going to humiliate me, dismiss me, whatever that their biggest fear is. How would you address that?
So there's a wonderful coach by the name of Miller, Caroline Adams, who suggests that when we are at a time of where the tenderness around risk is high, one way to navigate that well is before we go to sleep at night, ask ourselves to record 3 hard things I did today
Mm.
or 3 hard things I did over the last few days, because reminding ourselves of our own courage builds the muscle of courage moving forward. So even a small hard thing like, I took on the difficult conversation of telling the young adults they had to clean their bathroom. Like that was not going to go over well, but it needed to be done, right? Like that was not an excruciatingly hard thing, but it was not easy. So that's on my list tonight, right? So recording for yourself evidence of your own courage is a brilliant way to build more courage.
Well, and what I love about that is that we often do things that are somewhat difficult, someplace on that continuum, but we take it for granted. Of course I
Yeah.
would do that. It's what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
But we forget to anchor it as like, yeah, I did that. And it's hard. And yes, it's what I do. And I did it and
Yeah.
celebrate it.
And even if you did this just 7 nights in a row, I really like 30-day practices, but even if you just did it 1 week in a row, you would have a diary of evidence that says to you, oh wait, I'm braver than I remember. I'm braver than I remembered. And so maybe today I can take that risk on, the online or the phone call or the gratitude text. I can take the risk.
And with your work with clients, when you have them do that, what have you seen are the results?
So 2 sets of results. In some cases, success, right? The person at the other end responds positively. The other more sustaining result and more consistent result is an increase in positive self-regard, an increase of self-respect, of felt sense of competency, and an unwillingness to allow others to treat us badly. When we start to see ourselves as brave, self-esteem increases, efficacy increases, and competency.
Yeah, what I hear is it increases our willingness to speak up when something's not okay. So it actually lowers our bar for what we will accept as how other people treat us.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit to people who are really struggling with being lonely and isolated. They're missing that touch, hugging their friends, shaking hands. What do you suggest I want to say to fill that void, but that's not really what I'm looking at, but to actually be able to deal with that loss right now.
Yeah. So to let the sorrow come, first of all, I have noticed I've been doing a lot of corporate conversations, and there's a tremendous variety in people's experiences of isolation. So some people who are alone are sad, and other people who are alone are devastatingly sad. And we want to honor and respect our own experiences of pain first. Secondly, we do know that for some people, not for everyone, but for some people, writing about it is helpful. So this is might be a good time to take out a journal and begin journaling. The third is to think of connection as a seed, to water whatever seeds are available. So what I'm encouraging in companies is to have teams set up like coffee chat. So times, for a leader or a colleague to talk to someone that isn't work product specific, but just let's just hang out together in the way we would have in a hallway. And so too in our social relationships, just we don't have to have an hour-long socially distant walk if that's not feasible? Could we have a 10-minute coffee chat together, a check-in kind of thing? So to nourish whatever seeds of connection are there.
Beautiful. And if people want to find out more about you, Maria, where can they go?
Just my website, my name, mariasirois.com.
And that's, we're going to add it when we edit the video. So MariaSirois.com. And Maria, if there was one thing you would hope our viewers take away from today, what would that be?
That no matter the external circumstances, we always, always, always have the opportunity to care for ourselves in such a way that we activate our own sense of personal leadership, our own resilience, and our own capacity to honor and respect ourselves. And that much connection grows from there.
Beautiful. And with that, I want to say thank you for the time you've given us, all the strategies that you've shared, and the difference you make in the world.
Thank you so much, Iris.
Mm.